Hi, my name is Kenton Sumter. I'm an entomologist with the Maryland Department of Agriculture, and I've been asked to go and provide a regulatory update for the forestry industry as part of your guys' training session. So today I'm going to be going over the spotted lanternfly quarantine and the permitting process associated with it. I'm also going to give a little bit of background as to the spotted lanternfly life cycle and some distribution for the spotted lanternfly invasion at large throughout the rest of the nation. I guess I have to push this. Alrighty, so I hope you guys haven't been inundated too much with spotted lanternfly information to this point, but I just wanted to go over briefly the life cycle and some of the behaviors of lanternfly that's going to make them a problematic insect for you guys to have to deal with. So first and foremost, the life cycle is the most important thing to go and know about. Lanternfly at this point have hatched. They have hatched out as of April 17th, and they're going to be in their early nymphal instar stage. Right now, these insects are going to be very hard to see, although on certain tree species, you will be well placed to go and discover these insects. They do tend to stick with the tree hosts that they hatch on once they're hatched out and they finish melanizing or darkening of their exoskeleton. And they will quickly go and disperse off onto secondary hosts that they'll feed on until they get larger, until they molt into adults. Right now, these insects are going to be very, very small. The first instars are only about 3 millimeters across. They're very spidery in shape and have kind of an elongated head, but they're very dark. They are jet black with bright white spots on them. And they're going to get larger and larger. Over the course of the next 2 months, they're going to go through several molts, through a second and a third instar, and they'll get to be much more visible at that point. You'll probably find them on the trunks of trees, on the undersides of branches, and even on the stems going out to leaves. You're not going to see any particular feeding damage from these insects unless you're dealing with particularly thin bark trees, but you may see rather the honeydew that they excrete while they're feeding. Being such a small insect right now, they're probably not going to produce all that much, but you may experience areas where sooty mold is growing, where these insects are feeding. Because that mold is feeding off of the honeydew, you may also find increased stinging insects like wasps, European hornets, and things like that, because they're coming to feed on the honeydew as well. So that's something to keep an eye out for in your travels and your jobs, is these signs of lanternfly feeding. In particular, you're going to find them on host tree species that are preferential to them. Tree of heaven is a big one. So if you're doing tree of heaven removals or just noticing it in your day-to-day activities, these insects will feed on tree of heaven and will actually cause large sections of the tree to weep sap. And that's one of the main giveaways that lanternfly are feeding, is that you'll see fresh or dried runs of sap on tree of heaven, in addition to honeydew being on the ground or stinging insects being present to feed on the honeydew, or just seeing the lanternfly on the trees for that matter. Other species include red and silver maples, black walnuts, wild and cultivated grape, eastern white pine, and some species of willow. Those trees all seem to be fairly preferential to these insects. But when they're small, you may also notice them on a lot of other species too. In order to improve their competitiveness, their fitness, they feed on as many species as they can before they begin to come back to their more narrow host range as adults. In particular, we find them on a lot of garden crops. Ornamentals, rose bushes are very popular with these early instars for some reason, and expect to see them around a lot more when they're small, as opposed to adults, which they'll start to congregate more on tree of heaven in particular, and then maples later in the season. So by the time we get to July, we're going to finally see these guys in their fourth instar stage, and at fourth instar, they finally get large. They're going to be about about a half inch wide. They'll develop red markings on their exoskeletons, and this is where people really tell us they're beginning to notice spotted lanternfly. It's probably where you'll more regularly begin to notice them as well. The fourth instars will then molt into adults at the end of July, and this is the classic spotted lanternfly look. They have a brown wing that's polka dotted with black, with a bunch of small black hash marks at the distal edge of the hindwing. The hindwing and forewing. They're large. They're about 1 inch long and 1.5 inches wide when their wings are fully spread, and they have a brilliant red hind wing. These insects are flyers. Obviously, they can move around and fly. They're rather clumsy, but you will find that when you start cutting, they'll probably abandon the tree that they're on. If they're heavily infesting an area where you are, you'll notice them just kind of every so often leaving the trees that they're attached to and fluttering away to land on another food source or whatever drives above to go and leave the tree that it's on. But this is where the risk of hitchhiking and inadvertent transmission is greatest. Because these adults can fly, and because your work vehicles are going to be parked next to potentially infested trees, the potential for adults to go and leave the trees and wind up on your vehicles and then be taken back to a shop or to another work site during the day is very high. So what we want to try and do is be mindful of this human-mediated transportation or human-mediated transmission as the lanternfly are in their nymphal and adult stages. Now, once we get to September, the tree of heaven begins to go into senescence. So that means that it is starting to fall asleep for the wintertime, and the spotted lanternfly begin to look for new hosts. And this is where the adults begin to abandon tree of heaven, and they'll start looking for red maples and silver maples. They're very strongly attracted to those trees. They also begin laying egg masses, especially later in September and into October. They'll begin laying eggs. In addition, they're looking for mates. They're swarming, looking for mates, leaving tree of heaven, laying their eggs. The September-October period is the highest period of transmission for spotted lanternfly, the highest risk period. Because these insects are looking for new hosts and looking for mates, they wind up in locations that we never would have seen them before. This is also the time when we get heaviest reporting from Marylanders is September and October. The reporting they receive will double because of the quantity of lanternfly that are on the move. They'll be laying their egg masses in October and November. These look like a kind of gray splotches of mud. They're about the size of an adult. They're longer than they are wide, but still they're about an inch and a quarter long. They usually lay the eggs in neat rows, usually 30 to 50 eggs at most, and they'll cover it with gray wax. The wax looks kind of like mud early in the season, early in the winter. It's going to be very smooth and shiny. Later on, it will start to get a little more tan colored and cracked looking. They'll lay this stuff anywhere. They're a very cryptic insect, which means that they'll hide it. They'll lay it on the undersides of tree branches, on trunks, but really any vertical flat surface will do. They're notorious for laying these things on fence posts, stone, construction materials, nursery stock getting transported. They will put these egg masses even on vehicles for that matter. One of the highest risk industries for lanternfly transmission has been rail and rail shipping, because the lanternflies will go and bomb the cars while they're moving down the lines and stay put for a while. They'll wind up laying egg masses on rail cars and transporting those egg masses on down the long lines to whatever destination they're bound for. So the egg masses are almost as high risk as an adult being able to fly around. When it comes to actually managing these insects, though, one of the best times to be trying to actively destroy lanternfly rather than just trying to, scrape them off your vehicles is the egg mass season. If there's the ability for businesses to pursue management during the wintertime, crushing egg masses, then you can actually gain some degree of head start on the infestation for the following year, because these egg masses aren't being laid anew. The adults don't overwinter. They die off as soon as the first hard freezes come. So when you're destroying egg masses, you're eliminating a limited resource, and you're destroying 30 to 50 insects per egg mass. So if there's any interest in businesses to pursue management, I would recommend egg mass season is a good time to do it. The state is very active in trying to manage spotted lanternfly in, unfortunately, a kind of limited capacity. We just can't go and respond to the full infestation, but we have been pursuing egg mass control just using mechanical removals, as I'll show very soon. Just using a paint roller frame on a telescoping pole can be a very good tool for destroying egg masses up in trees. And then hopefully when they hatch out the following season, you'll just have fewer of these insects for longer, reducing your exposure on work vehicles or any materials you're transporting, and just hopefully keeping the workplace a nicer place to work with fewer of these insects being present. Now, this map is a distribution map run by the New York State IPM. Every state that has a spotted lanternfly problem has been contributing to this map, letting New York know where they're finding their infestations, where hitchhikers are showing up, and where quarantines have been established. I only show this as a way of demonstrating just how extensive the lanternfly infestation is. The blue is where every single life stage has been discovered. That means egg, nymph, and adult, which is representative of an established reproducing population. The small purple dots, which are kind of hard to see, those are representative of hitchhikers, where certain life stages have been discovered, but it's not been confirmed that there's all three present. So it's hard to say if there's actually a reproducing population. The red outlined areas are the limits of state quarantines. There is no federal quarantine. This is not a federally listed invasive species. It is regulated by state, so individual states maintain their own quarantines. I will detail the Maryland quarantine in the next slide, although I do have to say the slide currently for Maryland is not accurate. The quarantine is not as extensive as New York has it, so we'll have to go and amend that. But the scope of the infestation is still well documented. It is established throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. It reaches into New England, out to the Great Lakes, and as far south as North Carolina. So these insects really have spread far quite quickly. They were first discovered in 2014, and in almost 10 years they've spread to, I think the current count is 12 counties, I believe. I'm sorry, 12 states. But they've spread to a majority of Maryland counties, which we can go ahead and advance over to that slide and begin talking about the Maryland quarantine. So the quarantine document can be found on our website. I've listed the URL here for the exact link to the PDF for the quarantine order, but you can also search us at MDA spotted lanternfly, and we should be the first search results to come back. That's a fairly easy way to go and find our website. There's a lot of information there about spotted lanternfly, a lot of which I'm reproducing here in this talk, but there's also documents that are related to the quarantine, maps of the quarantine, maps of the infestation, guidelines for homeowners to go and do checklists, and a lot of helpful things like that. There's some outreach documents too that if folks want to, they can print those documents and post them in public locations. There's also the offer too that a lot of the outreach materials we have available are available to be mailed to businesses to go and inform employees or to act as just little goodies that can educate people on spotted lanternfly and give the state's contact information for reporting lanternfly and asking questions. So this order was signed by the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture. That is the authority that has issued this quarantine order. It's going to remain in place until the Secretary deems it unnecessary. So for right now, that's indefinite. We've not discussed yet the potential end of the quarantine. The quarantine order itself is a very helpful document. It is written in legal speak, so it can be kind of hard to follow at times, but it's fairly short. I believe it's only 6 pages. It gives a lot of good examples of regulated articles, which is one of the most important characteristics of the order, is defining what regulated articles are for Marylanders so they know what they're moving around and if it applies to the permit order, or applies if they need to apply for a permit, I'm sorry. Regulated articles is a very broad subject. It is really applying to the shipment of things that are going to sit still for a while and get exposed to lanternfly. So things that will remain in place for several days, up to a week before being shipped, are things that would really be considered high-risk regulated articles. What the order is looking for is for an article that is being shipped to be packaged, ideally packaged in a place that is not exposed to lanternfly. If a product was being packaged inside of a warehouse and then quickly loaded onto a transport truck at a docking area where the lanternfly were, unlikely to even be exposed to it for more than just a few minutes, then that would not really be classified as a regulated article. If, say, a shipment of timber or something was sitting out in a yard for a week or 2 or months, then that would certainly be a regulated article that needs to be inspected before it's shipped. Ideally, it would also be covered and packaged before it was shipped off and after any lanternfly had been removed or even treated, heat treated, insecticide treated, those kinds of things to go and remove the risk of pests being transmitted in general. And lanternfly certainly isn't the only pest that could potentially infest a shipment of timber product. So if the industry is already treating wood for wood-boring beetles or leps that are going to go and infest trees, then this is hopefully a tactic that will eliminate spotted lanternfly as well. And the requirements for this order then would just kind of fall into the general sanitation practices that you're already following. So we're trying to make this as painless as possible. We want folks to really be looking for spotted lanternfly and not trying to avoid it just because the lanternfly is one more bug to go and look for. It really is vital that this insect is slowed down and not allowed to spread to new areas of the state and impact more aspects of the state economy. Now, one of the big things I have to go and make clear is that regulated articles do encompass vehicles. This is something that people regularly ask because we're not just talking to the timber industry, we are also talking to a lot of transportation businesses, even small businesses that are just running fleet vehicles. Vehicles that are doing business in the quarantine, that are moving from or within the quarantine, count as regulated articles, need to be inspected, and need to have records of those inspections maintained. So even if you folks are, not directly handling timber products, if you are a contractor who is driving a tractor trailer moving timber, then you need to get yourself a lanternfly permit and be inspecting your vehicle. And if the cargo you're containing has been exposed to spotted lanternfly, include that in your inspection report too. Just go ahead and have it there, have that chain of custody and that chain of inspection reports, and maintain those records. And there's other requirements associated with the quarantine in terms of specifics on record keeping, inspection tactics, anything that you'd want to go and be able to reference. The quarantine order itself generally has that laid out in language that you could follow. Any particular clarifications you need, contact the Department of Agriculture and we can try and set you straight. So the spotted lanternfly quarantine, this is what Maryland's quarantine looks like. It encompasses 18 counties right now. We just updated this quarantine for March, and it's unlikely, in fact, I would say almost entirely unlikely, that we're going to update this quarantine again this year. We don't want to go and pull the rug out from under people who are just starting to get used to the way that the quarantine looks, or even for folks that have just, for the first time, been exposed to this quarantine. It is a majority of counties. I think we only have 4 counties, I believe, that are left, maybe 6 counties that are left outside of the quarantine. And the boundaries of the quarantine are established by our investigations as to where spotted lanternfly is reproducing. Any of these quarantine counties has an established population of lanternfly that is at risk of transmission to a new area. This also kind of delineates our inspection powers. We can enter properties and conduct inspections without the permission of the owners of that property. However, we're, again, trying to be as easy and cooperative with this process as we can. So if we contact you to go and conduct a survey, we'll send a series of letters asking for permission. If you say no, as of right now, we are going to go ahead and honor those wishes. If the situation is bad, if there is a risk of transmission that just cannot be ignored, then we may need to actually go and enter your property without permission. But that is not our first recourse. We want folks to cooperate with us and understand the value of allowing the state to ID the lanternfly infestation and help mitigate it. The bounds of the quarantine are important for folks that are moving their regulated articles. Again, that's going to be any article that is moved from, so exiting the quarantine, or within. And that's a distinction that has tripped up some folks. Even though you're inside the quarantine, still moving within it will dictate the need for a permit and dictate the need to inspect your regulated articles and maintain those records. So it's not just a case of you're inside the quarantine, you're good now. Sanitary practices still need to be observed and lanternflies still need to be destroyed when you find them. You're in enemy territory, but we're not trying to give ground more than we have to. If you find yourself outside the quarantine, then obviously the risk is greater. It's going to be a new area. Those counties that are in that light green color, we really want to try and keep clear of lanternfly as much as we can, because it is a huge pest to go and live beside. It's a massive public nuisance, and also a substantial economic pest as well. It will suppress photosynthesis in trees. It can be a very negative impact to the timber industry, but also vineyards, orchards, nurseries. Anything that has a plant these insects will feed on stands to be negatively impacted by their feeding. And then two, any kind of shipments going out of state may run into exterior quarantines in other states. I know in particular that I think Canada is looking at an exterior quarantine of incoming timber. They're looking for lanternfly on incoming wood product like that. There is the potential for other states to go ahead and start instituting external quarantines too. So it would very much be a shame for a shipment to reach a quarantine, find lanternfly either alive or dead on it, and have to be cleansed or turned back around and lose that valuable time and income from that kind of regulatory action. So if you find yourself at need for a permit, then you want to go and take yourself on over to the Spotted Lanternfly website. This is the state's Spotted Lanternfly landing page. Again, searching us is going to be the easiest way to find us. MDA Spotted Lanternfly is a good search term. I'll also list our URL at the end of this presentation, and I'll make this presentation available for distribution too. So if people don't catch it here, then you'll have a record of it that you can reference again. Our website is laid out in a little bit of a rough shape. It's got a lot of hot links over on the sides, but if you go to the right-hand side of the page, look for the link that says Spotted Lanternfly Permit Training for Businesses. That is a link that will take you to the page run by Penn State University Extension. There you can select the course. It's just a single selection that you make, and you can begin it. It's a short video series with a test at the end. It's a fairly simple test. The series, I believe, takes about an hour to 2 hours, depending upon how much attention that you're paying to it. And at the end of that, upon successful completion, you will be sent a permit. The person's information that takes the test, that will be our designated Spotted Lanternfly person for a business. We only need a single person to go and do this training, and then the expectation is that that person will be a trainer for their business. They will train the trainers. They will institute a Spotted Lanternfly training regimen and sanitary practices for the business. But if other business reps want to go and join and take the permit training, we're not going to stop anybody. The more folks that have this training, the better. The permit is good in perpetuity. We do not have a recertification period at this point. We have not talked about instituting a recertification policy. So right now, once you get the training, you're good to go. You don't need to worry about coming back to us and recertifying annually or biannually or anything like that. It's also free, so you don't have to worry about application fees. And yeah, so then it comes down to the kind of requirements that we're looking for as far as record keeping and inspections go. So I'd mentioned it before, but I'll just go ahead and reiterate it because it's the most important part of this conversation, is that if you are moving a regulated article from or within quarantine, then you need to get a permit. And a regulated article can be many different things, but it is also a vehicle. And in all likelihood, the fact that a vehicle is a regulated article is going to necessitate a majority of you folks here needing to acquire a permit. That is going to dictate that you conduct inspections before these vehicles move around for the day. If you're already doing vehicle inspections before business starts, wrap this into it. Go ahead and fill out some kind of documentation that will indicate the date that you conducted an inspection, the quantity of lanternfly that you found, and what mitigation tactic that you used to get rid of them. That could be as simple as I squished them, I brushed them off, something like that. I found 3, I found 2. If you can identify the life stage, that would be good as well. But if you just say I found this many bugs, that's still sufficient. That's what we're looking for. Maintain those records for 2 years, and that's the strategy that we're going to use that hopefully will get folks looking at their vehicles, looking at the goods that they're shipping, and getting the lanternfly away from these transmission risks. Oh, yeah. Excuse me, I apologize. This is the slide I put together for the actual inspection. This is just laying out what we're looking for. If you're moving from within the quarantine, you need a permit. If you are able to go and mitigate the exposure of your regulated articles to lanternfly, then, then they do not need to go and be inspected. You don't need to have a record for them. So if you are able to package them in a safe location, load them onto a truck and then have it moving, you're good. You don't need to be inspecting that, but the truck needs to be inspected. Whoever is the owner and operator of that vehicle needs to be inspecting it. Another thing too is that if for some reason you are conducting business outside the quarantine, your vehicles or regulated articles are beginning the day, beginning their transport outside the quarantine, are moving through the quarantine and then ending outside the quarantine, you do not need to inspect those regulated articles. If you're just stopping for short bathroom breaks, gas station stops, it would be good if you had a handbill there to go and show us that what's going on is that you're moving through the quarantine. You're not delivering a product to a location inside the quarantine. But if you're moving through it, you don't need to be inspecting your regulated articles. I do encourage it though, go ahead and take a look, because especially in some of the most heavily infested areas in the state, these insects can just be flying through the air around, TA rest stops, Maryland state highways rest stations and welcome centers. They can just be swarming. So it's worthwhile to try and take a glance, try and get rid of them. We do recognize that it can be extremely difficult to thoroughly inspect a truck and guarantee at all that lanternfly aren't going to be on it. We're looking for a good faith effort. You're going to read the quarantine order, you're going to see that there's a civil penalty associated with regulatory violations. It is not our intention to go and use that penalty as a primary means of regulating lanternfly or enforcing the quarantine order. We want people to understand that they're not painting a target on their backs by getting a permit and by participating in this program. We want a good faith effort that you're going to try and look for lanternfly, get rid of it, and record that you did that. And in that way, we're hoping that it's going to be a relatively painless process, and that you will spend your time looking for bugs as opposed to worrying about when a state inspector is going to come and level a fine against you. We understand this infestation is a huge problem and very difficult to guarantee that you're not moving lanternfly. The very last thing, maintain the records, hold on to them for 2 years in physical print or electronic copy. Either one's good. You don't need to take up valuable office space storing those records, just so long as there's something maintained that says that you looked for these insects. Now get into some kind of the things that you can do when it comes to your business sites, work sites, and even on vehicles potentially. There's a couple of different treatment methods that you can use. The one that I'm going to recommend to folks when I tell residents in general is mechanical removals are going to be the fastest, safest way for you to get rid of lanternfly. Destroying egg masses when the wintertime is around is great if you have the time and employees have the ability to be crushing egg masses on site, especially around any kind of like garages or sheds or workshops where things are going to sit for a long time. It's valuable. Lumber yards where timber is sitting for a long time, if you can crush egg masses around there, outstanding. The insects may even try and lay eggs on wood product that's laying on the ground, so it's worth destroying those when you find them if things are sitting around for a while. Smashing nymphs and adults by hand, very difficult. If you can, go ahead and do it. I would say this is probably the thing you're going to use for getting these insects off your vehicles, is just using your hands or a fly swatter and getting rid of them. Trapping is something. There are traps available commercially that you could put up around business locations to try and passively collect these insects and destroy them. It means less time spent outside trying to squish them by hand. Could reduce the kind of intensity of an infestation if it's especially heavy and has no toxic chemicals associated with it, so it's something to do if you don't feel like spraying chemicals around. When it comes to chemical options, these I only recommend if the lanternfly are a threat to your business, if they're actually destroying a product. The infestation is not going to be controlled by heavy spraying, and there's going to be such a huge ecological impact that you're going to be doing as much damage to the environment spraying for lanternfly as you would just squishing them by hand and crushing egg masses. If you're going to, I would recommend, say if you're contracting a pest control company, inform them that they should be looking for tree of heaven or just congregations of lanternfly, concentrations of lanternfly, where they could use a contact spray to knock them down. Doing large boundary sprays, treating lawns, things like that, it's just going to be so much money spent that will probably not long-term impact the infestation. Most of the contact sprays have a residual period of about 2 weeks, and after that the bugs are going to be coming back. A potential option, if you do have tree of heaven on your property, is to use a systemic insecticide. We call this the trap tree. Basically, it means that you have the tree that the insects are highly attracted to, but you poison it. So when they feed on it, they'll die. Don't do this before the female trees are finished flowering. We don't want to go and harm our pollinators by systematizing flowering trees. But I've seen a lot of mortality that occurs from systematized tree of heaven. And if you have that species on your property, that's an option potentially for quickly and effectively reducing the volume of lanternfly that you have on your property. Excuse me. The very final option you would have is cultural controls, and this is going to be the way you cultivate trees on your property. This is basically host removal, so getting rid of tree of heaven or getting rid of other preferred secondary hosts like maples, black walnuts, things like that the lanternfly are attracted to. In general, you certainly would never stop somebody from removing Tree of Heaven. I think that's a worthwhile strategy, but it is going to be expensive. There's going to be a cost associated, and Tree of Heaven is a very pernicious invasive. So you're beginning a conflict with that species too, as you cut it down and herbicide it, do the hack and squirt, wait for it to die, all that kind of stuff. You are also not going to end the infestation by removing its host. These insects eat over 100 species of plants, and they will just move to other hosts. The thing you may find, though, is that your property is less attractive if you especially get rid of Tree of Heaven, and the volume of insects you experience may be lower if you get rid of those plants. But again, it's heavy cost associated with doing tree removals, and you may actually kill more bugs by using a systemic insecticide on your Tree of Heaven. So wrapping up here, this last slide is a kind of a general overview of what folks can be doing to help the spotted lanternfly mitigation effort as much as possible. Broadly speaking, if you are familiar with what spotted lanternfly looks like, I have pictures of spotted lanternfly here on this slide at every single life stage, from egg mass through early nymph, late nymph, and adult. Be sure you know what it looks like so that you know what to destroy and what to report if you go and find it. Now, we actually have an online reporting system that I've not discussed yet, but if you do find spotted lanternfly and you can take a minute, go to our website. We have a survey that's the very first link on the website. It's got just a big picture in the middle of the website. You can go there and input information about where you found the insect, how many you found, under what conditions you found them, and you can submit that to us. Do be aware that we require a photograph for that survey submission. We're trying to improve quality control, so please do put in a photograph of the actual insects that you've seen. That'll help us identify if it's lanternfly or maybe a potentially misidentified insect. There's also an interactive map there where you can place the location where you found lanternfly. The app will prompt you to use your geolocation where you are. I ask that you try and be as accurate as possible in placing the map point where the insects were found. That way it's as accurate as possible when we're looking at the map. After familiarizing yourself with lanternfly, reporting your sightings online, destroy the lanternfly that you encounter. Since so many Maryland counties are part of the quarantine, there's no real reason to hang on to lanternfly. That used to be an old directive. If folks remember, we had been talking about snapping a picture and then freezing the insect and sending it back to the Department of Agriculture, and that's just not necessary anymore. Destroy all the lanternfly, get rid of it. There's no reason to hang on to it. And the very last thing is, if it is applicable to your business and your operations, get permitted and start following those directives from the quarantine order in order to slow down the spread of lanternfly and remain in compliance with state law. And this is the end of it. So this has been a regulatory update for spotted lanternfly. I hope folks have found this informative. We have contact information here if you want to ask questions about any of the topics that I've covered. The Don't Bug email is a very good way to get in touch. I check that every day and I will respond to you as quickly as I can. The phone number is to the Plant Protection Office, so you will actually be directed towards the spotted lanternfly voicemail if you leave a message with the phone number there. And then the URL at the top is our website. That is an abbreviated URL from the full one, so it's a little easier to go and get to. But yeah, that's all the applicable contact information. And this is it. Thank you so much for having me. I hope this information has been informative, and if folks have any questions, just shoot them back to me and I'll answer as many of them as I can. All right, thank you so much. Y'all have a good time. Bye.